On the left, okay, on your notes, it talks about what is a diagonal. A diagonal is a blank that connects two blank vertices of a polygon. Well, a diagonal is a line that connects two non-adjacent vertices, okay? So, I just drew an example of a diagonal. So, a line that connects two non-adjacent. Okay? We just learned about opposite adjacent and hypotenuse in the last one, so you should understand adjacent means we don't want the next one over, okay? We want two that are non-adjacent. So for the activity that we are going to do, okay, you are going to draw a diagonal, and then you are going to draw another diagonal until your pictures are split up into triangles. Do not have a diagonal cross another diagonal, okay? So here is the idea. What's the sum of the angles in this triangle on the left? 180. What's the sum of the angles of the triangle in the middle? What's the sum of the angles of the triangle in the one on the right? So therefore, these angles all end up adding up to be the sum of the interior angles of this polygon. Anybody know what the name of this polygon is?
A pentagon.
It's a pentagon. Very good. So what's the sum of all the angles in a pentagon if we've got 180, 180, 180? 540 degrees. Okay? So the sum of the angles for a pentagon is going to be 540 degrees. 180 plus 180 plus 180. All right? So you are going to be filling out the chart. Okay? So think about this. A triangle. How many sides does a triangle have? 3. What's the sum of the interior angles for a triangle? You just answered it 3 times. 180 degrees. Okay? All right. If need be, okay, if you need a picture, okay, just try and draw a little picture here. So would you agree that I just drew a quadrilateral? All right, so I am going to draw a diagonal connecting two non-adjacent vertices. Okay? So, how many sides does a quadrilateral have? 4. When I connect the when I create that diagonal, how many triangles do I have? 2. Okay? What's the sum of the interior angles of a quadrilateral if this one's 180 and this one's 180? 360 degrees. Okay? All right. Destiny just said that a 5-sided figure is called a pentagon. Has 5 sides. Our picture is up here. It was our example. Okay? How many triangles did we create when we drew in the diagonals? 3. Okay? And if we have 3 triangles at 180 each, what was the sum of the interior angles? 540. Okay? So that kind of gives you an idea of how to get it started. All right? With the people at your table, see if you can finish the chart. The objective of the chart is to be able to fill in the last line based upon a pattern. See if you can find a pattern.
I was there for like 5 minutes eating until lunch. So after a while, I'm like, no.
You're talking to the girls like all the lunch after school time. Just it comes straight up to an 8. So 5 to 10 minutes and then see what things is good.
Yeah, I'm not going to do 5
But I don't know. So with my chem teacher, I literally lived in her classroom until 5. Like I was there before school, after school, during school. Like I understand my grades to an A.
How'd
And it worked. I got an A.
Wait.
I can't read there.
Yeah, isn't it 1260? That's 1240.
Is it 1260? Yep, you're right. You're right. You're right. So then it's 1440.
Yeah, well, that was
relationship between the first two columns. What relationship do you see?
The number of triangles is like at -2.
All right, so it's always -2, -2, -2, -2, -2. Okay, so he says the number of triangles is n minus 2. Okay? All right, and then a name for this is just going to be, we'll call it like an n-gon. So if I say I wanted, say, a 20-sided figure, I'll just say 20-gon, meaning a 20-sided figure. Okay? So you just really need to know the names up to dodeca. After that, it'll just be numbers. Okay? All right, so now, do you see a relationship between the second column and the last column? Multiply by 180. 1 times 180 is 180. 2 times 180. 3 times 180. 4 times 180. 5 times 180. So what should I write down in the big box? N minus 2 times 180 is correct. Okay? So the idea is, in terms of teaching, that if you were able to figure that out, discover it, you're more likely to remember it than me just telling it to you. Okay? Big idea. You need to know this. Okay? That's one of our concepts from today. All right? So page 2. Well, page 6, sorry. Page 2 of day 1 notes. All right, so the angle sums, this is just a quick little reminder, okay? The sum of the interior angles is 180 for a triangle, 360, 540, and then for an n-gon, it's n minus 2 times 180. The big thing that you need to understand, okay, so this is our super duper important formula. N equals the number of sides, okay? FYI, it's also equal to the number of angles. Think about that. A triangle has 3 sides, a triangle has 4 angles. A square has 4 sides, a square has 4 angles. Okay, so n just has to, stand for the number of sides or angles. If you'd rather have an n here, okay, put an n. Okay? Questions there? All right, so the very first example says to find the sum of the interior angles of a convex octagon. Understand that we're only going to do convex. That means all the corners are pointing out. Okay? None of the concave ones. All right? So using our formula, big idea that you have to understand is, what does n equal for an octagon? 8. N equals 8. So now I go to my handy dandy formula of n minus 2 times 180, and I do 8 minus 2 times 180, and I get my sum of the interior angles. Order of operations, say I have to do in parentheses first, so what's 8 minus 2? 6. What's 6 times 180? What'd you get? 1080. So 1080 degrees. Does that work with the chart that's on our previous page? It fit? All right, so it sounds good. All right, so example 2 is what I was talking about. Once you get past 12, I'll just say 15 gon, which means that it's a 15-sided figure. See if you can find the sum of the angles. So 15 minus 2 times 180. 2,340 degrees is what I heard. We're good? All right. So example 3 has you just go the other way. The sum of the measures of the interior angles of a polygon is 2,160. They want to know how many sides it has. Ideas? Yeah. Okay. And that's it? And then you add 2.
Just say maybe. Well, just say minus. It says solve for n.
Okay. N minus 2 equals 2,000. 160, so just add 2 and you got a 2,162 sided figure. Yeah?
You divide by.
Okay. Charlie, you are correct. Okay. In terms of your answer, number 1, 14, and how you do it. Okay. If you listen to what he said divide by 180, and then he said add 2. Well, this is why. Would you agree that our formula, n minus 2 times 180, should equal 2,160? Do you agree with that? Well, if I'm multiplying by 180, how do I get rid of it? Divide. I'm going to divide by 180. Don't distribute. Okay? And now you've got n minus 2 is equal to, what'd you get? No. You got 12. Okay? Then he said, add 2 to both sides. And he got n is equal to 14, which is correct. Okay? Now, you can always check to see if you did it right by taking your number, plugging it back in, and see if it works. Okay? But he was correct in terms of how you do it. All right? All it is just taking our concept and changing it into an algebra question. All right? Big idea. Try not to distribute here. I think it's easier if you just divide by the 180 and add. Done. Okay? All right. This one. Okay? Find the measures of angle S and T. Big idea. Number 1, they're telling us that S and T are equal to each other because they both have the same markings. Okay? First thing that you always have to do is figure out the sum. What's the sum of all those angles? What'd you get? 540 degrees is correct. Okay? All right, he figured out that the sum was 540 degrees by doing what? How'd you figure out it was 540? Okay, he looked at the number of sides, said that's 5 sides. He did 5 minus 2 times 180 and figured out it was 540. So now, number 2 is just create an equation where 93 plus 156 plus 85 plus x, I'm going to do x for t, and then x for s, because they're equal to each other. So notice I'm adding 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 angles equal to 540 degrees. That's why I had to figure out my sum first, so I know what to set it equal to. Now just solve for x. I heard... $103? 103 degrees? Okay? And so if I were to plug back in a 103 and a 103, I should add them all up and get a 540. Okay? And it looks like that would work. Okay? Instead of finding the sum, they give you the measure of one of the angles. Okay? So, in a polygon, one of the angles is 140. Now, there's a couple of key parts to this. Number 1 is that it is regular. What does regular mean again?
All sides are equal and all sides are, sorry, all angles like are equal and are congruent, sorry, and all sides are congruent.
Very good. So, it's equilateral and equiangular. All the sides and angles are equal. All right. So what they're telling you is that every angle inside of the polygon is 140 degrees. They want to know how many sides this polygon has. Okay? So let's start with a couple of basic ones that you know. All right? So if I were to talk about an equilateral triangle, tick, tick, tick. What is the measure of each angle in an equilateral triangle? 60. How did you get that so fast? Has to equal 180. So 180 degrees divided by 3 angles tells you that each of them is 60 degrees because they're all the same. Okay? Let's take a square. Tick, tick, tick. Okay? What's the measure of each angle in a square? 90. Okay? What's the sum of the 4 angles in a square? 360 divided 4 ways gives us 90 degrees. Okay? All right. Yesterday, we did a pentagon. So if we had a regular pentagon, tick, 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 okay? And I wanted the measure of one of the angles in a pentagon. Well, the first thing that would be helpful to know is what's the sum of the angles. You said the sum of the angles for a triangle was 180. The sum of the angles for a square was 360. What's the sum of the angles for a pentagon? 540 degrees.
Each angle is 180.
Split 5 ways, he says, is 108 degrees each. All right. So, as the number of sides in the polygon is increasing from 3 sides to 4 sides to 5 sides, what's happening to each individual angle? It went from 60 to 90 to 108. What's happening to the angle measure? It's increasing as well. And the reason is, remember, with more angles means that it's opening up more. Okay? All right. So now, we need one of the angles to not be 60, not to be 90, but to be 140 degrees. Ideas on how we're going to figure out how many sides that is. All right, so maybe what we should do is this, okay? I just had you figure out that the sum of the angles of a decagon was 1,440, okay? How would you figure out the measure of one angle in a decagon if it was regular? Divide it by?
Like 3.
Why 3?
No, 4, divide by 4.
Why would you divide by 4?
If we were doing, no, I was thinking that we were doing the bottom one.
We're doing a decagon. What would we divide by? Not 180. What would we divide by? Mary? 10. Why would we divide by 10? Has 10 sides or 10 angles, okay? All right, so here's the idea. If I want to find the measure of one interior angle in a regular, okay, the key here is regular polygon. INT is short for interior, okay? The formula is the sum, n minus 2 times 180, divided by n, the number of sides or the number of angles, okay? So think about what we just did here. 180 is the sum of the angles for a triangle. We divided it by 3 angles. 360 is the sum of the angles for a square. We divided it by 4 angles. Pentagon. Jaron figured out that the sum of the angles was 540. We divided it 5 ways to get 108. The decagon. You figured out the sum was 1,440. Mary said divide it 10 ways because a decagon has 10 angles. And now you know that each of them is 144. Okay? So now, if I wanted to find the measure or the number of sides, I am going to take this and I'm going to set it equal to 140 degrees, which is my angle measure, and I'm going to solve for n. So all we're doing is working backwards now to use our algebra skills. What would you do to solve for n? Ideas. You want to go with what she said?
Oh, no, I didn't even hear what she said, so
Oh.
I thought she spoke first.
Okay. She said cross multiply. What do you think?
Again.
Yeah? Okay. You can. Okay, you can cross multiply, or some people might say, hey, just multiply out the n, multiply out the n, right? The n cancels over here, and now we've got n minus 2 times 180 equals 140n. Now, remember, if we want to solve for n, we got to get the n's on the same side. So what should we do? Use your algebra skills. What do you do?
You do the 180 times negative 2.
Uh-huh.
You get the negative 360.
Okay.
And then you multiply the n with 180 to get 180n.
Okay. So he says to distribute to get 180n minus 360 equals 140n. I like it. So the first thing we did was multiply the n to get rid of the fraction. Then we distributed. So now we've got our n's. And now what do you want to do?
Then you can minus 180 from both sides. And you're going to get negative 40.
Negative 360 equals negative 40n. divide by negative 40, and now you know what n is. What's n? 9. Okay, so n is equal to 9. And that makes sense, because we just figured out that a 10-sided figure has each angle at 144, so a 9-sided figure would be at 140. Makes sense, okay? All right, so let's try this again. Okay, squeeze it in, maybe, I don't know, up at the top or down at the bottom somewhere, okay? So this time, I'll do one that you already know the answer to, okay? So you have, each interior angle is going to be at 120 degrees, okay? N should equal 6, okay? See if you can take your 120 degrees and get n equal to 6, okay? So reminder, n minus 2 times 180 divided by n is equal to 120. Solve for n. All right, so we multiply both sides by n. N minus 2 times 180 equals 120n. That's 180n minus 360 equals 120n. Okay, subtract the 180n. And you should get negative 360 equals negative 60n. Divide by the negative 60 and you should get 6. Anybody have problems with that? Okay? All right, so last new concept for today, okay, deals with the idea of the exterior angles of a polygon. Okay? Let's get rid of this. There. Okay? So, the sum of the measures of the exterior angles of a convex polygon, you just have to remember, is 360 degrees all the time. It doesn't matter if it's a triangle, it doesn't matter if it's a square, it doesn't matter if it's a pentagon, okay? All right, it's always 360 degrees. Okay, in example 6 here, to find the value of x, okay, they give us the 4 exterior angles. What's the sum of those 4 angles? 360 degrees. We just said the sum is equal to 360 degrees. So 2x plus 67 plus 89 equals 360. Solve for x. Tell me what you get. Anybody need help getting 68? We're good? All right, so last one. Okay, this goes to the question that Destiny just talked about. One exterior angle of a regular polygon is 45 degrees. How many sides does it have? 8. How'd you get that? 360 degrees is the sum of all the exterior angles. If each angle is 45 degrees, he said he divided, and he got 8. Okay? So remember, 360 divided by n will give you the measure of an exterior angle. 360 divided by the exterior angle will give you n, the number of sides. Okay? So it works both ways. All right? Questions?